Welcome to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. Thank you for your service.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. It is an honor this week to have on the show Sergeant Major Marty Kenny. And why I say it's an honor is because he was nice enough to honor me. If you saw some posts recently from my Instagram and also the Weekly Fight Instagram, which Marty runs, I was lucky enough to be chosen for one of their workouts, their weekly workouts that they honor a veteran. And we're going to get into all of that. But as soon as he started contacting him, we were kind of going back and forth with the information. I knew I wanted to have him on the show because I love what you're doing. It felt great to be honored myself. And I know that for a lot of people, we don't get a lot of accolades. We're just doing what we're doing to help people. And hey, every once in a while, it's nice to have a little bit of a thank you. And you really did brighten up my whole month. I was telling everybody about it, and my friends in Pennsylvania, where you're from, all over the country. I was so excited about it, and I really wanted to have you on the show. So thank you for joining us, Marty.
Thank you very much, Jason. And it's definitely my pleasure, and I'm very humbled. I've seen your list of guests, and I've listened to some of your podcasts, and you've gotten some heavy hitters on here. So I feel honored being one of your guests a great deal. It's definitely nice.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And, you know, like I said, you were a sergeant major in the Marine Corps. That is definitely an accomplishment for any enlisted member to make it that far in the enlisted ranks. And I'd love to hear about you, your background, all of that. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I appreciate that. And I, you know, a lot of people say that to me about being a sergeant major, but I've always just been the sergeant. The sergeant major part I had a lot of problems with on the political end, but you know, I am a sergeant at heart, and my whole thing has always been taking care of Marines, and that's kind of, I think, you know, my Marines got me where I was. I didn't do anything. I went in 1985. I am what's known as a career reservist. The only active duty time that I've done is all mobilizations. Now, granted, you know, that whole weekend, a month, 2 weeks out of the year, it didn't bode too well when I was telling my wife going on deployment after deployment. But you know, it's definitely it creates a different set of circumstances, because you're dealing with, you know, you have a civilian job, you leave your civilian job, you go do your thing for your service, and then you come back and you're trying to figure out, you know, the difference between the civilian and the military world again. So I ended up, you know, spending 28 years in the Marine Corps. After 9/11, I got deployed 4 times, went 3 times to Iraq, 1 time to Afghanistan. You know, served with some great people. Did a lot of interesting things. By trade, before I went to the dark side of first sergeant major, I was a combat engineer. So my first couple of deployments, my first deployment when we did the initial invasion in the ground war, and we kind of got through everything, I spent the majority of my time disposing of unexploded ordnance, which was a lot of fun. You know, when you can blow things up and there's no limit to really the poundage that you can blow up, because nobody really cares. It's pretty interesting, you know. You know, when your standoff on an explosion is about a half a mile away, you know, it's going to be pretty interesting.
And you still feel that chest compression when the wave hits you.
Absolutely.
It is so impressive if you've ever been around that type of explosion, the power that comes out of it. It's really mind-boggling, actually.
Yeah, and I don't think people really understand that, you know, it's not just, you know, the shrapnel and everything else. That concussion that hits you can do a lot of damage as well. You know, which a lot of it, you know, that leads into a lot of discussion about TBI and everything else too. You know, because people don't realize it, you know, all of that stuff. So I started, at a fairly older age than everybody else. I think I had my 23rd birthday in boot camp. And I kind of, I went into the air wing, which wasn't very exciting for me, but I spent, 6 years in there, and then I went to on the ground side into the combat engineer field. And then, I was actually, because this is during the Clinton era when they had a lot of cutbacks, kind of like after the initial, kind of after the war that we just had, there's been a lot of cutbacks. But I was an 8-year sergeant before I was even in zone. And I loved it. I loved being a sergeant. But then, it was kind of funny because then after 9/11 happened, I picked up staff sergeant pretty quickly, and then like a year and a half later, I picked up gunny real quick. And it was like 2 or 3 years later, I picked up first sergeant. It was pretty rapid succession that things happened to me once I got deployed. And granted, it was a sign of the times because, we were ramping up, the Marine Corps was getting to another large number. Because normally during peacetime, we hover about the 180,000 mark. That's active and reserve. So there's not a lot of us. And so it was interesting to see the uptick, and I think the Marine Corps topped out at the height of the war at like 210,000, which again, small numbers compared to Army or some of the other branches. But, when I sit back and I look at it, to be one of the few that, that made it to the rank of sergeant major, and I guess, again, it's an accomplishment, but I don't think it's my accomplishment by no means. It is absolutely the guys. I've just served with some tremendous guys that have done some tremendous things, and really made me look great and hit all the floors that I have, So it's been an honor. It really has. I absolutely loved taking care of Marines. It's what made my day.
And to be honest with you, having served under some amazing chiefs in the Air Force, I was very lucky through my time in the Air Force that the chiefs that I had in the units that I was a part of were some of the best out there, especially for our career field. And they all said basically the same thing that you just said. And I think that's what makes a great senior enlisted, is that understanding that it's not you, it's the people below you that make you, and you're there for them. When that gets tangled, that's when I think you have a breakdown in that leadership. So, and I say that because I appreciate the fact that that is exactly how you describe being a sergeant major, is exactly how my chiefs that I have the utmost respect for, that's how they described it. So I think there's something to be said for that, with strong leadership. You see it with the chiefs in the Air Force, sergeant majors, chiefs in the Navy, whatever the case may be. These are the people that are supposed to be grooming the lower enlisted, but also the officers. And I think that too many times the officers can run away if they don't have a good senior enlisted person right next to them saying, no, don't do that. Shut up and listen to the sergeant, or whatever the case may be. They get a little too much power too quick, and then they can go down the dark side. Again, yeah, I like I said, I do appreciate that description of what it means to be a senior enlisted. So you were in the reserves 28 years. Very, very interesting going back and forth between your civilian career and being a reservist. I have to ask you, what was it like in the Marine Corps as a reservist deploying and interacting with the active duty guys? Because I know, like, when I deployed, there was always this kind of rub between your guard and reservist and the active duty. How did you feel, being kind of more of a senior enlisted person and dealing with that dynamic of, listen, you're in a high stress job, you're deploying into high stress environments, and now you have to work with active duty reservists. What was your experience like?
Again, I think it's, like anything else, I've served with great active duty personnel, and I've served with some people that, have that set of boundaries that they can't be turned around. And, it is what it is, you don't, and you make the best out of it and move on. I think for myself, what I think a lot of the active duties had saw within my company, my platoon, and the people that I worked with is what we brought to the table. Because one of the things that, like in OIF1, when we hit in 03, you weren't allowed to go out unless you had a corpsman with you or something like that. And, we were stretched really thin, but we had, we had registered nurses, EMTs,
right.
On the outside. So they were able to get us out the wire because of their credentials on the civilian side. And I think that that's something that's unique to the reserves, because you're not only bringing your talent and experience from the military side, but a lot of these guys have very applicable positions, registered nurse, EMTs, law enforcement,
of course,
that are very applicable to what we do in the military, and having some of those life experiences in that civilian sector really helps. That the way that we can interact with a indigenous population, I think, is a little bit different than the way our active duty side does, because we have more exposure to those type of environments. If I can put a sergeant who's also a corporal in this one was a Delaware State Trooper. If I can put him at a checkpoint where he's able to communicate people through interpreter and keep his cool, because that's what he does for a living all the time, 24/7, it just changed the playing field.
Yeah.
So I think that for us, when a lot of our active duty counterparts saw what we brought to the table, that just a reservist, segment changed. And I also think it's a lot of what you portray. If you just, if you walk around portraying, well, I'm just a reservist, I don't give a shit, then guess what? That's what you're going to get. So I think, I was very blessed to be with a company that was very tight, and I guess that's another piece to the difference between the reserve side and the active duty side is, on the active duty side, every 2 to 3, maybe 4 years tops, you're changing, locations, and you're getting moved around. I knew some of these guys for 8+ years before, we went in country. So, we had a lot of solid relationships. We knew how each other thought, it definitely changes the playing field, I think, for what the reserves can bring to the table.
Yeah, that was always one of my complaints in the Air Force, is how the Air Force used to deploy, at least when I was in. I got out in 05. So I was beginning of obviously the war on terrorism. I was in from 2000 to 2005. And the Air Force, I didn't like how we deployed. We had these buckets, the AEF buckets, and you would go and you would deploy, but you wouldn't deploy as a unit. So the people that you lived with and worked with every single day, you might be the only one from that base that went downrange. And then now you had to gel with this whole new group of people, and it didn't always work. And, you'd have to work through personnel issues. You'd have to work through who knows what, do we have all the guys that can actually get the job done here? What's your expertise versus my expertise? Whereas back at home, you already did all of that. Like you said, you've been working with these people for a while, and a lot of Air Force bases, depending on where you are, guys try to hang on to certain locations. So you had guys that were together for 4 and 5 years, and you lose all of that by doing it. Now, I think they've changed a little bit since I've gotten out. They've started to deploy more, not so much as units, but larger portions of one squadron will go downrange together, which I think is a better way of doing it, in my opinion. Because I think it's more along what you're saying is that you guys can gel together and then function at a higher level.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the differences with the Marine Corps too. I think being that it is so small, where on a larger scale for like all the combat engineers, when we would get augments from other locations across the country, a lot of times we knew those people because we did like a joint active duty training exercise someplace, So I've known a lot of these guys from across the country because they're in the same battalion as I am. So when we would get an augment, 90% of the time we knew of them, and would get some dirt on them from a higher up. And so I think that really again, I think that's a game changer for us on the reserve side of the Marine Corps, because it's just, there's that knowing of each other ahead of time. You know?
Yeah. I think it's definitely a positive, without a doubt.
Mhm.
So now you finished up your Marine Corps enlistment. When did you actually get out?
July 2015.
Okay, so not too long ago. You haven't been out that long.
Not too long ago. Not too long ago at all.
Yeah.
Seems like a lifetime ago, but no.
I'm sure. I'm out. I'm out over 15 years, and it's amazing to me sometimes, because sometimes it feels like forever ago. It's a whole nother lifetime, and other times when I'm talking to my buddies, it feels like it was yesterday. So it really all depends on who I'm talking to and what I'm talking about. But so you got out. You're from you settled down in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
How did you get the idea for the weekly fight?
So it's kind of it's just interesting. It just kind of happened, that really, I guess, to say.
Okay.
Throughout my deployments and everything, I started to have some, looking back on it now, and at a better educated level of understanding post-traumatic stress and some different things. I had a lot of issues that I didn't equate to, what was going on. I've had a couple of bad tours. I lost 3 guys in combat, but the real unfortunate thing is that I've lost, a lot more outside of combat. Since my deployments, out of my company and people I've served with, I've got over 8 people that have committed suicide. And it's crazy. So, I guess in November of 2015, I started thinking about doing something to try to help veterans. And I didn't know what it was and what I wanted to do, but I know that for myself, picking up a kettlebell and beating the shit out of my body just helped get a lot of things out. Whether it's just all that anxiety, the anxiousness, whatever the case may be, it just, I would get done working out for a half hour, 20 minutes, and I would just be a puddle of mud on the floor, and just like all that sweat would drain everything out of me. And I felt better.
Okay.
And it helped me as a coping mechanism. So I went up to the coach that I work out at a CrossFit gym, Darren Barker, and I said, I've got this idea where I'd like to do something for vets and get them in and to work out. And he didn't miss a beat. He's like, absolutely, let me know what you need. I want to do it. Just tell them they can come in, they can work out. They don't have to worry about membership, paying, and anything. And I was like, holy shit. So, that was November, and I really didn't think anything of it. I just started milling around the thought in my mind, what it would look like, how would I get people there was the big thing,
Of course.
Because we always say that we're going to do things a lot of times, and I'll be there and I'll love to work out, but when push comes to shove, you know what? I don't think I really want to get sweaty up today,
Yeah. Or the baby woke up early today. I'm a little tired. Exactly. There's always an excuse not to go.
Exactly.
Always. I had it yesterday. I wanted to go for a run yesterday afternoon. It was raining a little bit. I ended up running some errands. Then I got back to the house. I knew the baby was coming home from daycare. I don't have time today.
Yep.
Did I have time for a half-hour run? I certainly did. Did I go? No. And I actually was pissed at myself later on that day. But there's always an excuse. You're 100% right. There's always an excuse not to go.
So that whole idea of doing something went on for a couple months. And then in December, it was actually December, I think it was December 20th or 21st of 2015, the CO that I retired from, the unit that I retired from, called me up and asked, or somehow we connected because something was going on. And she asked me to call Sergeant Klinger, who was a Marine of mine that served under my command while I was a sergeant major there. And she said, hey, can you give him a call and just try to see if he'll pick up the phone? He had a fight with his wife. Nobody's found him for a couple of days. We don't know where he is. So I tried to reach out. Needless to say, I didn't talk to him. I didn't get hold of him. But unfortunately, they found his body on December 26th in Pine Barrens in New Jersey. He hung himself. Yeah. And for some reason, that suicide really hit me hard. And I think it was mostly what my thought was he has 3 kids. And all I could think of is this is the kid's Christmas from now on. and I've been down that dark road before, so I don't, a lot of times when I tell this story, I talk to people about, suicide, and when you have a service member that commits suicide and they have young children at home, they're like, oh my God, how could they do that to their children? And what people don't get is that in my mind, what that person is going through is their family is better off without them.
100%.
I'm snapping at the kids. I'm yelling at the wife. I'm fighting with everybody. I'm miserable at home. I am just not doing anything for my family. I've got $400,000 worth of life insurance and another whatever. They're better off without. Take care of them. And they go down that dark road and they end up killing themselves. But knowing that was the case with these three kids, I was like, I'm done. I got to do something. So I talked to my coach again and I said, hey, I'm moving forward with this. I picked up the phone and I said, the first Sunday in 2016, we're working out and you're coming. And, I ended up fighting, screaming, guilting, and telling people that they're coming. And, we started doing the workouts in January of 2016. And I had this idea that, my whole idea behind this was a couple-fold. I wanted to bring awareness to suicide and what our veterans are going through. And I really wanted to do something and to take care of the military families, spouses, and children that were left behind. Because what happens a lot of times, depending on, especially if that person's active duty, if there's a suicide, depending on how the command puts that investigation of that suicide, if it's not directly correlated to post-traumatic stress or some military stressor, they just get pushed to the side.
Yeah.
And either way, they become part of the system of the VA, and the VA basically goes, okay, well, here's this loose leaf binder, 2 inches, 3 inches thick of all your benefits and what you can do. Let us know how we can help you out.
Yeah. Figure it out. File the paperwork that you need to. Good luck, by the way, filing it correctly. Because we're probably going to deny you 3 times as you fight for different things. And specifically what you said, depending on how it is written down at the time that it happens. And it's so difficult to think about it in this way, how important that, whoever writing that down, it's the farthest thing from anybody's mind that's going through it, a family member or a friend. But it's so important what they write down, because that family might never see any benefit.
Correct.
If it's written down wrong, or you don't fight for it to be correctly handled. It's the saddest thing in the world, because it's the last thing that those people need to be dealing with. And it's the farthest thing from their minds. And a lot of times that's why it doesn't get done correctly, because there's nobody advocating at that moment.
Yes, absolutely. And that was a very important piece to me, is to do something for, because I know what my wife, the bottom line is, I would not be here if it was for my wife. There's not a doubt in my military mind. And that family unit of support is so crucial to the mental health of the service member and, the family unit as a whole. And they're so underappreciated. Yeah. It just drives me nuts. It used to make me batty a lot of times when I'd be out, and people would thank me for my service, and that's all well and good, but I'd be with my wife and I'd just thank her.
Right.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to go to serve my country. If it wasn't for her being able to stay home, taking care of the kids and the family and all the rest of the shit, and deal with deployment after deployment and deployment, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Because I think a lot of people, especially a lot of people that have served who have family, when you go into a combat environment, you have to literally take that family and take it and put it over here, and let it sit over there until you've got some downtime to think about it. Because the last thing you need to go through your mind is what's going on at home. Because it's going to take you the focus away from something that could, jeopardize your life or somebody that's next to you. So having that military spouse taken care of was very, very important to me. So what I did was I said, I want these, I'd like to open this up to veterans and military spouses and family members. So if there's older kids, they want to come, they can come and work out. So like I said, I got on the phone, I called a bunch of people and we started doing these workouts in an effort to create some awareness for post-traumatic stress. What I decided to do was dedicate the workout to a veteran that lost their struggle with post-traumatic stress.
Okay.
So for the first year we did that. And a lot of times when we did those, a couple of those were people that I knew and served with. So it was really, really tough for me to do those a lot of times. By the end of the year, I was like, this isn't effective. This isn't really doing it. It's got to be dark and depressing every time we do a workout. And I'm like, this isn't working. So we changed the format. I decided to do a dedication to somebody that's making a difference in their community and nation level, worldwide, whatever the case may be. Kind of like what you want to do with your show.
Yeah.
Is recognizing that there's a lot of great veterans out there doing some tremendous things.
Yeah.
So if we could get all those veterans that are struggling to see that, we've got veterans that, like Travis Mills. I don't know if you know Staff Sergeant Travis Mills, but he's one of the four, I think, quadruple amputees.
Yes.
And the guy is unbelievable. I mean, so positive, so funny, just unbelievable. So how can I take this guy that literally, if you said this guy's got nothing to live for, everybody would go, okay, yeah, I understand it. But how does he get to that point where he's able to move forward and other people aren't, and that's how I got turned on to this whole post-traumatic growth thing. A lot of that came from actually a speech that I heard General Mattis say one time when he started talking about post-traumatic growth and how when we're in stressful situations that, it's a natural correlation to take that stress and turn it into a positive or a negative. And when you turn it into a positive, you turn all those stresses into growth. And that's really what I'm trying to push forth with a lot of this, is show people that you can grow from those adversities and show people that post-traumatic stress is not a bad thing. It's what your mind is supposed to do to protect you. And that's where I think a lot of people get confused about post-traumatic stress and what it is. And I don't like to call it post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't like the D on it, because I think that's what that makes, myself included, because like on all those medical forms where you have to say, did you ever have anxiety attacks? Did you ever have this, that, and the other thing? I'm like, no. So I don't want to jeopardize my career. I don't want to, because I know in the Marine Corps what happens. They said, please let us know. We'll help you. They'll get you help, but they're going to get you help through a medical review board. And since you can't deploy, you're not fit for service anymore.
The Air Force is the same way. They were notorious for, please tell us about your alcohol issues. Tell us about any stress that you had coming back from deployment. They'd give you this post-deployment checklist. And if you did write anything down, then you either got med boarded or you got put on a program. And once they put the label of non-deployable on you, especially during my time when we were foreshaping and trying to actually reduce, you talked about it earlier, that there was that time after the initial invasions that they were like, okay, now we don't need all these people. Let's start drawing it down. And we had such an influx after 9/11 of all these people that did enlist. Now we have too many. Let's start okay, we're just going to non-re-enlist you. We'll non-re-enlist you.
Yep.
And you're out. So it became a world where nobody was, being honest on any of this stuff because they didn't want to become non-deployable.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I think that, since we kind of always in the habit of pushing that stuff down and away, that it becomes habit, So, we don't understand it. Like, 6-7 years ago, if you would have came up into my office and told me you're having a panic attack, I'd be like, the fuck you talking about panic attack? Get the hell out there. Just shut up,
Yeah.
I had an incident when I got back. It was after my initial tour in OIF-1. I got back and I was supposed to go back to work. I went back to work too soon, as I realize it now, but I was getting ramped up for a pretty big project at work. And the day before I was supposed to go back to work, I ended up having chest pains. I literally thought I was having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know it was a panic attack, because the whole thing, when we talk about trauma as a whole, what I think the majority of people don't understand is that post-traumatic stress is there to protect you. So you go through a traumatic event where you potentially lose your life and your brain goes, okay, these set of things happened. I got to remember this. So if I'm ever in this environment again, I can protect myself by either fighting or fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And so what our brain does is we store all those sights, smells, sounds in our memory banks. And when something happens, like a loud noise or certain smells, we start to get this feeling of anxiety and anxiousness and just an uncomfortable feeling that we don't understand. And it's really your body and your mind putting all that adrenaline into your body so you can have that choice of what you're going to do from a fight or flight standpoint. And it's all there to protect you. But since we don't understand what's going through our body, we immediately go to, what the frick is wrong with me?
Right.
And of course, we're not going to talk to anybody about it, because why would we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And we just start internalizing that and just pushing it further down and just really start, to go down a rabbit hole of what, I'm really, there's something wrong with me. Now you add on, I'm snapping at the kids, snapping at the wife, blowing up at the job, blah, blah, blah. And you go down a road that is very hard to get out of, because you get to the point where you're hopeless and helpless, because it's not like you can go and help somebody else. You've got to internally help yourself. And since we don't understand post-traumatic stress, we don't know what to do.
Yeah. And it's that quicksand kind of theory. Once you're in it, it's so hard to get out. And I 100% agree with you. It's so much easier to go and help somebody else. I can be the guy on the phone for one of my buddies like that and make sure that they're okay and help them through whatever they're going through and give them advice and talk and let them unload on me. But if I have to talk to, say, my wife about what's going on in my brain, the wall goes up. Mm-hmm. It's the exact opposite of what I'm doing for everybody else that would call me on the phone. That it's so crazy when you actually say it out loud and think about it. It's so counterintuitive to how you actually should be. You should want to take care of yourself first, but that's the hard thing to do. That's the difficult thing to do.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's, and I think it's one of the things that I think a lot of people, again, on the civilian side that don't understand the military is, once you get out after 4 years, even 4 years of service, mm-hmm. You've had some level of responsibility where you have people below you, whether it's 1, 2, 3, a fire team, a squad. You had a case where you're responsible for certain individuals, feeding them, getting them fed. They're everything about it. You're responsible for them. Mm-hmm. And that taking care of people, I think, is what drives a lot of military folks forward. I know it did for me.
Yeah.
And it also helped me to hide and mask my issues. And even with the weekly fight, when I started this and we started doing it, it just kind of fell together. It just, I can't tell you how it happened. Mm-hmm. During the first year that we were doing it, I decided that I wanted to start raising money for Sergeant Klinger's children. So I started looking into it and decided that I was going to start, I'll just make us a nonprofit so that, when I do this event, we can get donations and set up a trust fund for the kids. And it just mushroomed into this, where we're in right now, we're in 6. We were at pre-COVID, we were at 11 locations, but since COVID, it's been a little bit challenging for us in a couple of different locations. But it just kind of happened. I mean, right. I had I have a really awesome guy, Mark Abbott, who just chance meeting. Actually, it's kind of a weird story, or funny story if you want to look at it. But we were doing a dedication to a gentleman that Mark actually served with, and he heard about us doing this dedication. And he was like, what's going on with this? Who's using, Jeffrey's name, and why are they doing a dedication, and why are they raising money for him, and what's going on? So he came down basically wanting to kick my ass, So I saw him at the front door and coming in, and Mark at the time was, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, a little, probably about 20 pounds overweight, your typical post, service vet.
Yeah.
And just was like, what the hell's going on here? So I said, dude, why don't you just shut up and come in, and see what we do and just listen. And then, afterwards, we can go from there. So I ended up bringing him in. I actually had him talk about Jeffrey, who we're dedicating the workout to. And he just turned into one of our biggest advocates. Seeing the change in him, definitely helped me see that we're making an impact, which is great. So he had approached me, the following year in 2017 and said, I live out in Oxford. I belong to a gym out there. I'd like to open, see if I can do a chapter down there. And I'm like, okay, sure. Whatever, and then from there, it just kind of mushroomed. It just kind of mushroomed into people reaching out to me. I dedicated to another gentleman, James Talby, who has a gym. So his gym's actually called Fire for Effect. So it was pretty easy to kind of locate him and say, okay.
Yeah, it's a great name.
Yeah. So he came in, he became a partner. He's one of our partners now. They do the dedication once a week, and it just kind of mushroomed to there. We started doing, we started raising a lot more money. So we started a crisis management fund. To date, we've probably given close to $70,000 away to people that have needed, bills paid, to happen, all kinds of different stuff. And then 2 years ago, we started an overall scholarship fund. The first year we gave away $10,000 in scholarships. Last year we gave $20,000 away. And this year we're right now targeted to give 15. I'm hoping by the time we get done with the applications, we'll be able to give at least another 25,000 away. But it just happened. I can't tell you how it happened. It just kind of fell together. It's just been been a pretty interesting journey.
Yeah. And what is awesome is the scholarship part for me. The fact that you're raising money for these families that have lost somebody through just extremely stressful times, offering the workouts free to the veterans and their family. That's awesome. It's great. Like you said, it creates a meeting point. It gets people up off their ass and start working out and doing something for themselves. But people forget that there are these families that are left with nothing. And actually, they're not left with nothing. They're left with nothing but questions. And for the kids that are involved, depending on the age, it could be during the time that they're supposed to be getting ready for prom and getting ready for graduation. And I'm going off to college. And now there's this tragedy that can derail the rest of their lives, financially, mentally, everything. So to help out those individuals above and beyond just the veterans and the exercise and the working out and all of that, I think that is huge. How many scholarships have you guys given out so far? I think I saw 5 or 6 just in 2020.
Yeah, there was 5 in 2020, and then we gave away 4 in 2019. So, we're trying to keep, obviously we're not dealing with, lots of money for ourselves. So we're trying to keep it impactful because, $1,000 scholarship is nice, but, really, it doesn't put a whole lot of dent in the bills, And, and I guess one of the things, the reason why doing this sparked my interest is that if you look at it as a whole, there's a ton of organizations out there that provide scholarships for children that lost their loved one, their family member to combat. There's a ton of them, special operations group out there. There's just a ton of them that offer, that scholarship for those people. But if you lost your parent to post-traumatic stress, there's not a whole lot out there for you. There's not a whole lot of support groups out there because we don't want to talk about suicide.
Right.
It's taboo, and it's just it drives me nuts that when we start talking about this, and a lot of times I can see it in certain individuals, that kind of like withdrawing, that I don't want to hear this stuff.
They get squirrely real quick.
Yeah, and it's a shame, it really is, because this whole journey, has been really interesting for me. And this past year, and I'll just go full disclosure, because it's one of the things that is important to me, is that I share my experiences to help everybody else. But last year, when right before COVID struck, I started going through another kind of tough time in my life where I just, I couldn't get right with my overall dealing with people as a whole. My irritability was off the charts. I just, I was definitely getting anxious. I was definitely getting rammy in crowds, and just all the typical stuff that kind of, we make jokes about. It's like the funniest thing, if you take 4 veterans and you go into a place to eat, who's going to fight about getting their back set against the wall versus the door, because we're all like that. I want to see everything, and that's where I want to be. So all those things started to build up. And then in March 3rd of last year, I ended up having a blow up at my civilian job at my work. I got pissed off about something, and, I went high and right. The knife hand came out, and I'm just, went right back into sergeant major mode. So I went home and talked to my wife about it. And prior to this, I started going to the VA and started looking at doing some outpatient stuff, which actually kind of sparked a lot of other things too inside my brain housing group. So in March 4th, I went back to work because my wife said, you better go out on FMLA before something happens. So I went out on FMLA, said I was going to go into the VA, into the inpatient program, and COVID hit that week. Ugh. So I ended up staying home from March till July, trying to wait for bed space in the VA. So I'm going from working 12, 13-hour days, coming home and working probably 3 or 4 hours on a weekly fight, and just having my day jam-packed, to now not working and having a lot of time to be alone with my thoughts, which wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
So I ended up, and I think July 1st, I was getting closer to getting in and getting closer to the point where, I was going to get the help inpatient that I needed. And they were starting to tell me about all these parameters because of COVID. My wife couldn't come. I couldn't see my family. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. You're going to be isolated. There's no groups. And I'm just, all this stuff's going through my head. And I just was like, fuck it. And I ended up, I had 6 years sober prior to that. I ended up picking up a bottle and washing some sleeping pills down. My wife found me the next morning, kind of passed out on the couch, a little bit perturbed.
To say the least, I'm sure.
Yes. And, because, this is what I'm all about right now is preventing suicide. But yet here I am, not even realizing what I'm doing. And that's how quick I think that people don't realize these things happen, is that you go down that dark path, and it doesn't take long to start to show yourself how worthless and how easy it would be for everybody to not have you in their life. And when it's the exact opposite, that people really would want you in their life. So, I ended up, a couple of days later, I ended up going into the inpatient program, and I did, I went through a whole bunch of different therapies, but I did, it's prolonged exposure therapy. So basically, you talk about the incident, or a certain traumatic event, and that definitely made me worse.
Wow. Okay.
Because I never thought about it to that detail before. And I started going down, a really, really dark path while I was in there. And it's been a struggle for a while now. So, now I'm doing all kinds of crazy shit that I never thought I would do before. Like I'm doing acupuncture. if you would have told me acupuncture is going to help post-traumatic stress, I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, and the jury's still out, but there is so many different solutions to this problem. And it's not a problem. It's really, there's so many solutions to this situation in a life where we're looking at trauma in a bad way. When trauma, getting past the trauma is phenomenal. You survived, Right. So now how do we take that understanding of trauma and get it to a point where we know how to deal with it and come to terms with it? It's acupuncture, and you had talked, I know you had Balanced Veterans on yep. your podcast, and, the uses of medical marijuana, are just phenomenal. I mean, there's just so many different things that are out there that help veterans and people that go through trauma as a whole, because one of the things that I like to try to talk about with veterans is that I think veterans are uniquely positioned to talk about trauma and help the civilian population get past their own trauma.
Yes.
Because you have a car accident and it's a traumatic event, especially if somebody dies or if you're driving and somebody dies in the car that you drove, that's going to be with you forever, and understanding it and understanding that, the next time that you're out and driving and you start getting ramped up and you start wondering why, it's because you're going back to that place where when you were driving and you had the accident. So it's very interesting over the past couple of years that for me to understand and learn how amazing the mind is. Because the things that we do and the way that we push things down and away is we think it's protecting us, and it's just really making it worse. As opposed to letting because we don't, that F word, that whole feelings thing, we don't want to do that. We don't want to feel.
That's the hard work. I say it all the time. That's the hard stuff. I did not know about all of these alternative ways to deal with post-traumatic stress until I started interviewing people for the podcast and stuff. I have come across everything from equine therapy to medical marijuana, MDMA, ayahuasca. We've talked to people just about yoga, and I actually had an acupuncturist on very early on. He's a buddy of mine I went to high school with, and he was talking about it. It is amazing to me how many things are out there. And I say that because it's so hard to get people to do it. There are so many different things out there, but please stop me if I'm wrong. I'm kind of speaking for you here. But when you were in the depths of that dark place, it didn't matter how many things were out there to help you. It didn't matter because you weren't going to probably do any of them at that time.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And that's what's so difficult is to get to the veteran in a place where we could get them out of that dark place to take advantage of all of the things that are out there and let them know that there are so many people that are not better off without them in this world, that the world is a better place with them in the world. That's really the challenge, is to get them out of that place to help them. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. I think we're getting a lot better. We're definitely better than we were, say, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, and I definitely think that we've definitely are starting to break the surface of the water, and coming above it so we can take some air. The problem that I think what we have is that we tiptoe around the issue so much that, even when we're on the phone with somebody that we think might be suicidal, we still tiptoe around it. Where, I had this guy that had a great story where he said, he was in a dark place and, he called somebody and point blank, right, face punch all. He goes, dude, you're not thinking about killing yourself in that freaking shitty Chevrolet, are you? And, just the humor to the fact of making a joke about it got this guy out of his head,
Right.
you know, but I think that since we're afraid to say, dude, what are you thinking about doing right now? You know, and really having that open, honest communication is what's important. Because I'm not going to, you know, the only way I'm going to talk about something like that is if somebody hits me with a 2x4 and says, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, why are you thinking about killing yourself? Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And it still will be white noise to me. But the fact that it's hitting me in the face and making me think about other things is what I need at that time. Because something's got to get me to turn away from that dark place and look at the light and start heading towards the light.
Yeah. You need a pause. You need to have a pause. There has to be that break that can get you away from it. And again, being the guy on the other end of the phone and having talked to a few people and been in that situation where it's like, hey, you're not going to do something. You need to call me no matter what time of day, blah, blah, blah. And I will say whatever needs to be said to you to get you out of that. That person is so important in that moment in time, just to get you that pause so that you can reevaluate, rethink what you're doing. And like you said, maybe turn around and you're saving a life at that point. You really are.
Yeah. And, you know, and I think a lot of it is because one of the things that I think for people like myself and yourself, you know, what we do is we get wrapped up in helping other people so we can forget about our problems.
Without a doubt.
And, you know, what happened to me last year, I just got to the point, you know, especially after the fact of my losing my sobriety, you know, I was just like, holy shit. Am I a freaking hypocrite? I'm sitting here, you know, talking about post-traumatic growth and all of this wonderful, happy-go-lucky crap. And man, you know, and that's why I decided, you know, I'm going to go down the path of if I have to talk about things, I'm going to talk about things. If I have to, whatever I have to do, so I can show people that you can get to the other side.
Yeah.
From my own experiences, because I just, you know, I was in that place. And again, I'm not, you know, I guess for people like myself, you're like, I'm not a door kicker. I'm a nobody, you know, and you don't realize that there's certain things, you know, when you're in a combat environment, you know, I ran so many, you know, I don't know how many miles through Iraq in convoys. And when you know, back at home, I can't drive with my wife in the passenger side. And now she's a great driver. She's not a bad driver anymore. She's going to probably kick my ass and I'm telling this story again. But to me, it's a perfect example because I couldn't figure out why, like, I would be in the passenger side, just like tapping the foot. And, you know, I'm just getting all wired up and not understanding why. And I went to a buddy of mine that I served with, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what's going on, but every time I'm with my wife driving, I get ramped up. I feel like, you know, my head's on a swivel, blah, blah, blah. He's like, dude, where did you sit the whole time that you were in country? And that's where I sat. I sat in the passenger side of a Humvee because, you know, I was a senior, so people were driving me around. And that peripheral of somebody being in that position over here just brought back, you know, feelings and memories that I just, you know, that whole idea of having to be alert because you're in a threatening position, you continually do that day in and day out, day in and day out. It's going to do something to you.
Yeah, you're conditioned at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You're programming your brain to act a certain way, and until you program your brain to stop acting that way, you're going to keep doing it, whether you're in Iraq or Williamsport, Pennsylvania, or Wilkes-Barre, or wherever the hell, wherever you are, you're going to be the same way because your brain is programmed to do it that way. And it's that fight or flight mentality. It's you talked about smell. Smell is so powerful. That musty smell of a Humvee. Anybody who's driven anywhere in a Humvee knows that smell above and beyond any other smell. You know what I mean? I'll never forget it. And I wasn't even in any type of combat experience in that way, but I can tell you exactly how that smells. And I'm sure you could too. It's amazing how it just gets into your brain and won't go away.
Oh, absolutely. one of my last deployments, I was part of a MIT team. You know, it was myself and 17 Marines, and like I think we started off with like 800 and something Afghan nationals, and we ended up, you know, by the end of the training cycle, I think we were down to like 600. But anyway, so you know, Afghanis are not known for taking showers every day.
Yep.
So the body odor is pretty heavy. Fast forward a couple of years, I'm standing in a restaurant and somebody comes behind me that's got, you know, some pretty powerful body odor, and I'm just like immediately like, what the hell's going on, you know? And it's so hard to correlate and understand that's what's triggering you, for lack of better terms. And I think that education process of identifying those things that trigger you and understanding why it is, you know, another step towards combating this post-traumatic stress. Is the education period is what I think is really critical, because people that don't understand it, you know, immediately, like we said, it goes right to down that road of there's something wrong with me.
Right.
And I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to share it because, you know, I don't want anybody to know that there's something wrong with me.
Well, they put disorder in the name of PTSD. Right away, you have a disorder. There's something wrong with you, even though PTS is an exact way that your body, it was designed to react to the stressful situation. Should you be reacting all the time to every situation like that? No, that would be more on the disorder side. But PTS is exactly how your body was programmed to react to these stressful and traumatic experiences. It's not a disorder. Your body did exactly what you were supposed to do. Now it's how do you deal with it moving forward? Mm-hmm. It's getting rid of the disorder.
I mean, and it is absolutely unfortunate. And really, you know, it's only a disorder because of insurance companies.
Yeah, agreed.
You know, because the insurance companies won't pay for anything from a mental health standpoint if it's not labeled as a disorder. You know, so it's, you know, it is what it is. But I think because of that, and because of the way that, you know, the military is portrayed. Like one of the things that when we first started doing the weekly fight, I was just, you know, the first several months, it was just, I just want veterans there and I want civilians there. You know, I just want a place for veterans and their spouses and just us to get together, and that's it. I don't want civilians there. And then after a while, we, you know, I think it was Mark actually that came up to me and, you know, said, hey, you know, we're kind of talking about assimilating back into, you know, the civilian population. You know, and a lot of people that were coming in after our workouts were like, what are you guys doing? We'd love to come, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no. So we decided to open it up to civilians, and it's been amazing doing the dedications, talking about post-traumatic stress, and seeing the light bulb go off in that civilian counterpart's mind about what a veteran is. Because, you know, the average civilian, as far as I'm concerned, they think veterans are either that crazy guy that's going to blow up, you know, the Capitol building, or he's a Navy SEAL. Yeah. There's no in between.
There's something out of a movie. One way or the other, there's something out of a movie. They're the drunk at the end of the bar portrayal of a Vietnam veteran. You know, long hair, still wearing, you know, a fatigue jacket. Or like you said, they're a spec ops guy, you know, dropping out of a helicopter on top of a building. Yeah.
So there's no in between. So, you know, one of the things that became important to me is to try to educate the civilian side on what the military life is like, what are veterans like. You know, we're people like you. We got different experiences. We also just don't tolerate certain things that you guys tolerate. That's all. You know?
We're just a little blunter. That's all. It's just being blunt.
Exactly. You know. So it's been an amazing journey, and you know, everything that has happened to me over the past, you know, year has opened up my eyes to a lot of things, and a lot of things about myself. You know, so, you know, now I've got a lot of time on my hands. It's pretty amazing. I'm you know, I guess pseudo retired, because I'm not sure I'm going back to the civilian life or not, a civilian work or not. My wife is telling me not to go because she's worried that I'm going to end up in jail or something. So it's been, it's been interesting, and I ended up. I told you when we first started, I ended up getting a dog. It's one of the things that was suggested to me was to get a service dog. So I ended up getting a dog that I'm training for a service dog, and it's just been it's been a pretty amazing journey of understanding how I did some horse therapy and I did some different, animal therapy things. But just having having this guy with me all the time and just some of the reactions he has to me and picks up on those things. He's only 5 months old.
They're a mirror.
Yeah, it's just it's astonishing to me. A couple of weeks ago, I was in a group call, on a Zoom call for with the VA, and I started getting wired about something that was said. I was getting a little ticked off, and he was sitting next to me. He sat up, turned towards me, and just put his muzzle like right in my face. And I don't know if it was just, the stars or whatever the case may be, but it was so freaky to me that it happened that instance when I'm really wired that he just kind of shut up and came right at me. And I was just immediately taken out of my, my shit. So, and there's so many things like that, I think that veterans need to understand that there's solutions to getting you past those dark moments.
Yes.
We talk about breathing exercises all the time, and people don't realize how much, whether it's a 4-4-4 count breathing exercise where you're breathing in for 4 counts, holding it for 4 counts, exhaling, how much that can help center you and get you back into a calming place and quiet the noise in your head. And having those tools and techniques are important.
Yeah. Yeah. You hear a lot of guys talking about breath work nowadays. There was some movies back in the day that kind of made fun of it and made light of it. I think Bad Boys was one of it. The Goose Frog. Everybody knows that. So there's kind of a little bit of a laughability to it. But I think people are getting very serious with what they could do to de-stress in certain situations by using breath work and things like that. I love to run. So running to me is my de-stressor because I can kind of go off into a different place and I can see things clearer in my own head. I put some music on, I go for a quick run. And even if it's a short one, a little mile and a half, something like that, I come back feeling like $1,000,000, even if for just a short period of time. But I feel great because I think it actually has a lot to do with the breath work that you're doing as you're running, that timing, that cadence. In, out, going in line with your steps, that kind of recenters you and brings you back to a better ability to deal with whatever's going on in your head. So there's something to be said for that, definitely.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, and that's why I focus on the fitness side of it, to help veterans, because I think I think wholeheartedly that breathing that you have to do to get that oxygen into your lungs when you are just gasping for air and putting out your hardest effort, and you have to focus on just that, just breathing and the movement that you're doing, that it quiets everything down and gets your brain to readjust and recenter. It gives you a calming effect, and not counting the endorphins that get kicked off and everything else and all those little chemical reactions that happen too in our brain. But the question goes back to, are you doing it, and are you going to do it?
Right.
And that's where, the struggle comes. And that's why, again, it was important to me to start walking the talk when I started having my issues last year and start, getting my, I don't want to be on a podcast like this talking about exercise and all this shit. And meanwhile, my world and my brain and everything else is falling apart around me. It just, it's something that always bothered me about, like, even Senior Enlisted, when they talk about bullshit and don't walk the talk. I want uniform standards, but meanwhile he's looking like a bag of rags.
Yep. It's a duffel bag in himself, and you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah. So, I didn't want to be that guy, that, wasn't the example. So, that's why, I went into deciding to put myself into the VA. And that's why, I'm going through and doing acupuncture and all the crazy stuff I'm doing now. I'm just going to do what I need to do to get better, so I can be there for my family and I can be there for other veterans and help more people. Because that's what it's all about to me. That's what it's all about.
No, and you're definitely on the right path, because I think people react differently to somebody who's just being honest. They don't feel like they're being fed a line of bullshit, like you're saying. We know that senior enlisted guy who's telling you to do something, and they're off doing the exact opposite. We all have, whether you're a civilian or you're a veteran, you have an example of that in your life, boss, whatever. So when you hear somebody speak honestly about their own personal trials, you right away want to now listen. Now you want to engage and have a conversation, and you're more apt to actually open up about what you got going on if you hear somebody else sharing. There's a reason that group therapy works, because when you hear somebody else share, you're more apt to share. All these things, there's a reason these things work. Again, it's getting people to actually do it that's the more difficult and the harder part.
And that's, unfortunately, that's the biggest challenge, and I do, and the bottom line is I do it myself, and I'm sure you too do as well, is that, there's moments, times, and everything else where I still go down that dark path. And rather than pick up the phone and say, hey, Dave, listen, this is what I'm feeling like right now. And he goes, yeah, just stop being an asshole, move on. Sometimes that's all I need.
That's it. Yeah. You just need somebody to call your bluff. Not even a bluff, but call your shit out, basically.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And, but I still don't, I still don't pick up the phone. I still don't do those things that I'm telling everybody else to do. So, that's why now it's really important for me to kind of move forward with those things and walk the talk and be a better example for people of what to do, because it's so important. My incident in July really put forth to me how quickly you can slip into that helpless, worthless stage, and how in a nanosecond you can make a bad decision and be gone.
Yeah. Yes.
And I don't want to, and the unfortunate thing is, looking at it back now, I've dealt with so many families and so many people in the aftermath of suicide where the family is destroyed because they are all wondering, what could I have done differently?
Yeah.
And there's damn nothing you can do. Nothing. There's absolutely nothing you can do, because in that moment of time where it's dark and you see no way out, unless you hit me with a 2x4, I'm going down that dark path.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately, it's the reality of it. But the other unfortunate part of it is that there's families that never get past that because they always blame themselves, that they should have known. I should have known that I'm going to, he was going to commit suicide.
Yeah.
Because it's always a surprise. It seems like it's always a surprise. You never thought that guy was going to do it.
Yeah, no way. And it's the human side of us that you it's easier now to blame yourself because that person's gone. I should have done this, or I could have seen this, because you can't blame the person that's gone. They're gone. You can't yell at them anymore. You can't tell them what you're feeling. They're gone. And all that's left is you. And it's very easy to yell at yourself and blame yourself. And it's unfortunate. It really is. I unfortunately know too many examples of it where people, they have had such a hard time getting past it, and they sink into their own dark place, because if they just had the opportunity to talk to the person one last time and tell them the things that they're feeling now, they could possibly move on. But they don't get that opportunity. It's a very sad situation all around for the whole family. It really is.
Absolutely.
I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate that you're giving people a place to gather. You're looking after the families, but you're also just educating and shining a light on something that I think the veteran community is dealing with. And there's so many organizations out there, like you said, 22 veterans commit suicide every day, all of this stuff. And we hear it time and time again. And unfortunately, it can become buzzwords and bumper stickers and slogans and t-shirts and things like that. But what we really need to do is make sure that we're helping the people that need the help, and shining a light on things that can get people past what they're dealing with, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the world is a better place with you in it, not the other way around. So again, I do appreciate what you're doing and how honest your being with how you're tackling it. So thank you for putting that out and letting yourself be seen like that.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's been a great hour plus. We've covered a lot of ground, man.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we just, that's the thing. You start talking and it's it goes by really fast. But
Yeah.
I want people to know, one, where can they get more information about the workout? So if I'm a veteran spouse, whatever, and I want to exercise with you guys, how do I get information on that part of things?
So you can always go to our website. All the locations are listed. It's theweeklyfight.org. We right now we're presently in 6 locations, mostly in the southeastern Pennsylvania. We do have a location down in Delaware that we're still in. Once we get past the summer and I see how COVID lays, we'll probably look to start growing again.
Okay.
But it seemed like we were putting a lot of stresses on some business people that are great partners to us. They open up their gym, they give us free space. So, I stepped back from a lot of locations that were struggling. I mean, because, this has been a tough year for everybody, it really has.
Yeah.
So, our website, we're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, The Weekly Fight. You search it, we'll pop up, and all our information is in there. But we'd love to see anybody come in. Just you come in, let us know who you are, and we'll get you sweaty.
Yeah, that's the best part. Come on, why not get sweaty on a weekend? That's the best way to be.
Absolutely.
And is there a place if you have somebody that you want to nominate to be one of the honorees for a workout, can you send that information through the website?
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up, because one of the things that's very important to me is I'm trying to keep it locally, so because there's a lot of times that we're able to get that veteran to come into a location and talk to people as a whole, which is fantastic. But I can't get them to 6 locations, so they always end up doing a video for us. But getting people nominated is what really is important to me, is because it brings people to the forefront that I would have never met. But on our website, on the front page is a hero section where you can nominate a hero. You just put in their name, information, a bio, an email gets sent into our main box, and we'll go through it, and we'll probably reach back to that person, get some more details, and we'll put them up there and love to nominate them.
Awesome. And then the final part is the scholarship. So for anybody out there that has somebody of the age that they're getting close to graduating high school, and if they are somebody that has been affected by PTS or veteran suicide or something like that, how can they apply for the scholarship?
So our scholarship will open up for this year. It'll open up May 1st. We're still in the prelim stage of trying to find out exactly how much funds we have. But on our website, there's a scholarship tab. So if they just go on there, once the application opens up, they'll be able to hit a link, fill out the application, submit all their information through that link, and they'll be submitted to the pool. And hopefully, I think it's July 1st, we have slated for the notifications of the scholarships for this year.
Excellent. And again, that's just such a great thing to help those people out and to make sure that they continue down a good path and get an education and have some benefit out there. Every dollar helps, whether it's to buy books, whether it's to get started just a little bit towards tuition or travel or whatever the case may be. Education is so expensive, and every dime does help. But Marty, like you said, it's been over an hour, man. I've had a blast talking to you. Anytime I get to talk to the Marines, I as an Air Force guy, I got to talk to the Marines every once in a while. It's good for me. I got to see a knife hand every few months, or I start losing it. I can't deal with it. But it's been great talking to you. I love what you're doing, and I'm sure we're going to be in contact in the future and work on some stuff together.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to, Jason. Like I said, it's my honor, really. I'm very humbled to be on your podcast, because, like I said, I've looked at your list of characters and I've listened to some of your episodes, and you've got some heavy hitters on here, and I look forward to seeing what you're doing and who you bring on too as in the future holds. So I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate it. Well, again, I want you to have a great day. Enjoy your travels. Get home safe and all that kind of fun stuff. And take care of that dog. All right.
I sure will. I absolutely will. Thanks a lot, Jason. You take care of yourself.
Take it easy, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.